PRS sent me a new mystery guitar. Well, it's not much of a mystery for you guys because you're seeing this review on launch day, but they had sent this model to get my opinions on it a little bit early. So let's go ahead and see what we're working with here. Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. All right, something semi-hollow with two humbuckers, Narrowfield in the center position. We've got the bird inlays, appears to be part of their S2 series, and it's labeled as a special on the headstock. So my first thoughts on this is, okay, when I had first heard that they were sending me a semi-hollow, I was thinking like Ted McCarty semi-hollow chunky guitar model. We have reviewed one of those before on the show. Those bodies are massive and they were a lot of fun. But this S2 Special seems to be about the regular thickness of a guitar. Now granted, I haven't had tons and tons of PRSs, so maybe it's slightly thicker, but we've got just one stylized F-hole here. And then check this out. I like this little arm comfort carve right there because the rest of the guitar is actually rather flat on the top. So it's like blending a flat top with a carved top with some semi-hollow nature. Okay. First impressions on the weight, it's not super light by any means. But I find this interesting. Our neck pickup is stock from the factory, upside down, uncovered center with covered bridge. And then look at that. Going back to the 70s and 80s with mini toggle switches. The general marketing rundown that they gave to me on this is that it comes stock with 12 different pickup combinations, and that these are for coil tapping your neck and bridge pickup, and then you just have a 5-way switch. So that is gonna be a lot of different tones, but interesting that they gave you the opportunity to do that with little tiny toggle switches rather than push-pull pots. But it looks like this model's coming with those new PRS style tuner tips. They actually do feel pretty good. But the next thing I'm noticing is this entire guitar is a full-on gloss finish. Set neck, part of the S2 USA production, and these are all retailing at $2,599 brand new, and all feature true nitro finishes. The available colors are black amber, dark cherry sunburst, faded gray black blue burst, as well as faded gray black purple burst, fire red burst, which is pretty sweet looking, and then a classic lake blue. And this whole time while unboxing it, I was pretty sure the back was black, but nah. Get it in the light, it's pretty much ox blood. That is a very, very dark red, where in most situations it really does just look black. But no, it's not. It's got a little bit of colorations in it. But just in case it wasn't clear, PRS sent me this guitar for independent review, and I do get to keep it. So it is a sponsored episode by them. If you're interested in this new model and you want to help support the show even further, feel free to use either my Guitar Center or Sweetwater affiliate links to order one. So my honest first impressions, not really digging the way it looks. It's a bit goofy, but a guitar like this is meant for a player, and with all those different tonal opportunities, it might be you plug this in and it becomes your new favorite. But I'm really curious about this semi-hollow nature. Is it actually just a chambered mahogany body that's being a little bit fancified in the marketing? Well, that's why you come to my show. I've got the endoscope to find out. While taking its screws out, I did a bit more research as well. This is not a new model, it's just being offered within the S2 lineup, which if you're not familiar stands for Stevensville 2, which is a new manufacturing line that they started around 2013. It's where they can still make nice Maryland-made PRSs, but not as expensive as their really high-end ones. So a regular PRS Special, if you just go to Reverb and look at some of these, they're beautiful, gorgeous, but they tend to cost $4,500 to $5,000 plus. So now we've got this new lineup offering similar tonalities as far as having the same switches, same pickup configuration, just to be a little bit more affordable. This series makes a lot more sense to me now. But let's start with our pickups here. If you look on the corner, the model is actually etched into the top of them. So it's the 5815 LT. LT stands for low turn. The official marketing says these are warm, vintage-inspired tones with a sweetness and clarity to them, utilizing Alnico 2 magnets. So basically trying to be like a 1958 PAF. But I would love to know why they decided to put them on upside down. Or I guess it's more accurate to say, why are they both neck pickups? Because if you're like me and would love to swap that pickup around, then the reading is in the location that I would think it would be at. But then your bridge pickup is upside down. So you just can't win either way, unless you want it to look like that. But the neck one is marked bass and the bridge as treble. So everything is peachy there as far as what they put in here. And then this is the Narrowfield. technically a humbucker, but a little bit more focused than that. You can just barely see the branding right underneath that wire. But if you're ever working on one of these, be careful. You got a whole bunch of little wires coming out of them on top of your regular shielded wiring. But here's what our cavities look like. We've got some sort of a gray shielding paint, a little bit lighter in hue than I'm used to seeing on some guitars. But here's a great area to see just how thick your maple top is before it joins onto that mahogany body. That's easiest to see right here. And this isn't a perfectly accurate measurement, but somewhere between 1/2 inch to 0.6. And then you can see where the neck joins onto the body here. And that neck tendon goes all the way to the end of the neck pickup cavity. So that's in there. Something I've always liked about PRS guitars, though, the way they do their pickup rings, they're so soft on the corners, nice and rounded, and the height adjustment screws are so recessed. So even though they look traditional, you're not going to accidentally scratch your hand on it or anything. But now let's get our pickup readings. Just the bridge, 7.47k ohms. Neck position a little hotter at 755. Middle position is 378. The selections are a little bit different, as you can see here. When you're in the middle position, we're not selecting the middle Narrowfield. In fact, it doesn't even look like you can completely isolate that. You can only blend it. So your middle position is like a 3-way toggle switch where it's the neck and bridge operating at the same time. Now these are technically coil taps. So you're not getting complete half readings, you're just removing some of the windings. So for your bridge pickup, that is this one. Once again, we go from 747 down to about 510. And then again for our neck, 754 down to 514. But speaking of the 5-way blade switch, that feels really good. Like some switches are kind of clicky or too stiff. This one, you can feel each individual positioning. I think players will enjoy that. I like the plastic tip that they have on it too. It's nice and wedge shaped. And we've got our typical very fast feeling speed knobs with their molasses coloring. Matches pretty good with your sunburst finish. Now, if you're thinking, hey, I wish this had the natural binding showing along the edge, that's what you gotta step up to the more expensive ones to get. Or you can have a fun modification project, because we know it's got it under there. You just gotta reveal it. But now, as far as its construction, let's go on in here. To me, this is more so a chambered out mahogany body. It's got this whole cavity right here. But if you're thinking semi-hollow like a ES335, where it's a pressed top, back, and sides, no, this is basically just chambered. So semi-hollow in a different way, because it's actually interesting. This is a complete separate chamber. However, usually once you come into an F-hole guitar, they'll kind of stop right here, but this one does continue about halfway through before being blocked off. So roughly like right here. Then we can also go up our little cutaway cavity here to see what they're working with. But that's a really good look at the mahogany body and then our maple top. So for me, now the weight and everything else makes a lot more sense, but we can take a second to appreciate our carved top. You've got that little ledge as we were talking about earlier, just to make the guitar a little bit more comfortable. And then that does continue on the other side just for symmetrical sake. But for the most part, the top of this is completely flat. And then this does utilize a trem system with your 6 individual block saddles. I'd imagine the trem arm is in our gig bag case. But moving on from our mahogany body and maple top, we've got a mahogany neck with a rosewood fretboard. I was thinking it was looking pretty dry stock out of the box, so I went ahead and conditioned it. Another difference between this and the higher end Special, you get more details in the birds. Rather than being mother of pearl or anything, this appears to be some sort of an acrylic material. Still looks nice though, if you like the PRS birds, that is. But this utilizes 22 frets with a 25-inch scale length and appears to measure closest to a 10-inch fretboard radius. And they call this a pattern regular neck. I measure 1.68 inches at the nut, increasing to about 2.08 at the 12th, 0.87 first fret neck depth, and 0.93 at the 12th. If pattern regular doesn't mean anything to you, because you don't buy many PRSs or you're not familiar with feeling many of them, the best way to describe this, I would say, it's not a massive feeling neck, but it's still full, but it's kind of like a soft V shape where it really just fits the backside of your hand, but the shoulders are sculpted away. It seems like it would be comfortable, but it does feel rather narrow. Here's that neck profile at the 1st fret and the 12th fret to help you see what I'm talking about. Just all the shoulders scooped away, so it feels like there's a lot on the back. Now, it's not actually a pointed V. It's still a C shape, but you feel it. It fills your hand. It's quite nice. But now we can move on to the face of our headstock. These are Phase 3 locking tuners. If you're not familiar with the PRS style, you string it all the way through, and then you lock it down using this fine tuner-like system up here. PRS has one of the few top locking tuners that I actually enjoy using. But here's what your truss rod looks like if you take the cover off. But here is our special truss rod cover with our new S2 branding underneath it. Backside looks like so. Now that I have it strung back up, I noticed something else about the neck. Part of why it also feels so narrow is they've rolled the fretboard edges quite nicely. So it is quite comfortable, and they've really rounded off the edges of the frets nicely too. Sometimes when you roll the fretboard too much, you start to catch the frets, so they've got that down. But now moving on to the backside. We do have a comfort cut back here, and remember, it is a red finish. I tried to see through to see if there were seam lines. I couldn't see any, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. But here's what your trim cavity route looks like with our cover removed. Got a nice big block and 4 springs. And then we have this cool heart-shaped back plate where, my goodness, do they have a whole lot of stuff in here. So a regular pot over here. We got some capacitors and resistors, a nice giant orange drop over here, as well as our vintage style mini toggles before we get to our tone control. But man, that is a fancy looking 5-way switch. No wonder it feels so good. But you know what? I'm actually wrong. I was thinking that this was the only cavity because I just thought, okay, the wires just go through there. However, if you really get up close in its face here, that is more than just a regular drill run. So yes, they actually chamber out quite a bit in here, although it's kind of hard to see with all the wires in the way. But yeah, sure enough, there we go. We get a great view. It's pretty much the same thing on both sides, at least as far as the cutaways go, but the routes end over here. So I think on the front, it kind of goes here, and then we just kind of have this solid spot right there. But in case you'd like some up-close readings of our pot codes, as well as what kind of resistors and stuff they're using, we'll get you those just for fun here. But it looks like a lot of different wiring stuff going on. I wouldn't want to be tasked with wiring one of these up. There's the readings on our big guy, a 600 volt. But another thing to know is the back side of our plate actually has all that copper shielding on it. And that grounds off using that. So you shouldn't have much noise at all. But as is typical with many PRS guitars, the back plates sit proud. Just something to know. But we've got a metal output jack plate with the PRS style strap button, also in this location. Then we can move up the back side of the neck. Not too much going on here. Just that nice dark red finish. We've got our open gear tuners. Then our serial number puts this one to 2024. But all said and done, this one weighs about 7 pounds, 6 pounds, 14.7 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how this new S2 version sounds. Before we plug in, I just want to get a straight up acoustic test because people are always curious when you have a semi-hollow guitar how loud they are. Not as loud as like a 335, but a little bit more projecting than a solid body. What I notice actually comes down to the resonancy of the guitar. Like before you even plug one in at a store, you should always just strum the guitar a couple of times. And if it speaks to you there as far as a resonancy thing, that's when you should continue plugging it in. So this particular one, yeah, the neck just vibrates like crazy. Now let's see how these tones are. So those are your 12 basic tonal options. I was kind of expecting more differences. Those are just all very subtle variances on a humbucker. I would say my favorite is this in the middle position with both of them tapped. It's definitely the spankiest and brightest. But here's just those neck pickup tones. Definitely round, but without being muddy. And just that bridge humbucker. And then that neck and middle together. That still has a certain chime to it. Just fuller than the full split. Then your flip-flops. Okay, so with your bridge on full and the neck split, it's definitely a lot spankier. Then of course the positions that blend in your Narrowfield. All right, I'm liking that one. All right, now let's try some dirt. We'll start with just the regular humbucking positions. there we go, the new PRS S2 Special. What are my final thoughts on this? I was honestly expecting more crazier tones out of this thing. It does have some very mellow humbuckers, so if that's what you're after, with just some mild variations in between, I think you'll be plenty happy with this. Was it my favorite PRS I've ever played? No. The one that always comes to my head was the satin finished Vela. I really liked that one because it was a little bit more simple and raw. But if you like the prettier gloss finishes and higher end appointments that this one has, you're going to enjoy it quite a bit. The tones in the room while I was playing, I didn't notice a lot of differentiation between them, but listening back to the recording, I was actually impressed by many of those selections. But not everybody likes having 3 pickups on a guitar either. But the whole wiring system for the 5-way switch and the mini toggles definitely makes this a nice recording instrument if you want to toy around with getting nitty-gritty tones. But if you're like me and you just kind of like a more simple guitar, you might find yourself getting lost in some of the options. But the longer and longer I would play this one, the more it started to inspire me. But something else that stood out to me as I continued to work on this guitar, the F-hole is on the flat surface as well as the curved surface, which is just kind of fascinating, but it makes sense since it's a maple top. They can get away with doing that. But in person, it kind of gives you a 3D effect to the F-hole, which is cool. And it was fun to find out that both sides are almost equally chambered. There's not many other YouTube shows where you would find that out with an endoscope. So if nothing else, I hope this video helps you make an informed decision whether one of these new ones is right for you, because that's the entire purpose of my show. All right, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.